I've got my house wrapped around my little finger with Home Assistant, and I want to tell you how you can get yours the same. So in this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know to get started with Home Assistant. We're going to set it up on a Raspberry Pi from scratch. We're going to add some devices. We're going to set up some automations. We're going to link it with a phone. We're going to link it with Google Assistant, Alexa, whatever. And I'm going to take you along for the ride. So stay there, watch the video, and I hope you enjoy it. So first off, what is Home Assistant? Have you ever heard of it? It's an open source platform that allows you to bring together all the devices in your house into one platform. There are things like HomeKit and Alexa and Google and all those things, but they all have limitations. They're all proprietary, and there's always a list of supported hardware, which means you can't always bring in everything. With Home Assistant, the list of supported devices is huge, and because it's open source, new ones are being added all the time by people. And worst case, if you don't have one, if it doesn't support what you've got, you could always write your own using Python. You'll just have to learn Python, which may or may not be so simple. Now, I want to start from the very beginning here with you, so I'm going to start from scratch. The best place to run Home Assistant is in your house. You can get, unlike these cloud services, which rely on an internet connection, Home Assistant is designed to be local to your devices. So what I want to do to begin with is we're going to take one of these. This is a Raspberry Pi, and if you have never heard of one of these, it's basically just a one of these. This is a very small computer, really. It's got all the bits you would need from a computer in this small package. And what we're going to do is get Home Assistant running on this. But before we do that, let's get this in a case, because it's not very safe without one. So this is basically something I bought from the Pi Hut. It's a whole bundle. It's got a power supply here. So we've got a USB-C power supply. We've got the Pi itself, which is a Raspberry Pi 4 with 4 gig of RAM. It's got this case and a small micro SD card. So let's go ahead and get this in here. So we just line this up here with the ports facing that way, and there are little standoffs in there to put that on, and then the SD card will slide in there. Just put that case lid back on, and that's that. We're not going to need that power supply, so I'm just going to pop that out the way down there. So the first thing we need to do is actually get Home Assistant installed onto this SD card. Now we're going to need a micro SD adapter. Now I've got an SD card slot in my laptop, but I don't have the SD card adapter to hand. So you stay there for one moment while I go and get it. Okay. So here we go, here's the SD card adapter. What we'll do is we'll take out the SD card, and if we can get out the packaging, pop it in here, pop it in there, and we'll insert the whole adapter into the computer. Then we'll put all these bits out of the way on the floor. Once that's in there, we're going to use a tool called Raspberry Pi Imager. Now you can download this from the Raspberry Pi website, but I've already got it installed here. So I'll run that up here, and then we can just use this wizard. It's really good, this tool. It's just got everything you need. So press Choose OS, and then we're going to scroll down to Other General Purpose OS, and then, nope, sorry, my mistake. We're going to go down a bit further to Other Specific Purpose OS. Then we're going to choose Home Assistant and Home Automation, then Home Assistant, and then we choose the one for our Pi. In our case, we need this RPi 4/400 version. So we'll click that there. Next, we'll choose the storage we want to put it on, which in our case is the Apple SD card reader. And then we're just going to press Write here, yes, type in our password, and it's starting to write that to the SD card. So that might take a few minutes, and we'll just speed this along while that happens. So while that's writing, I can tell you a little bit about what we're going to do next. We're going to take the SD card out of here and put it into our Raspberry Pi. We're then going to power it up and plug in a network cable. We're then going to wait a little bit for it to just turn itself on and sort itself out, and then we'll be able to start configuring Home Assistant. That won't take probably that long. So we'll get back to you when this SD card has finished. It's just verifying. 20%. So it's finished writing, it's verified. We can now press ignore and continue and remove this from the laptop. So let's get this added to our SD card. Let's remove the little micro SD bit and pop that into the slot here on the bottom. Okay, so all we need to do now is put a bit of power into this and connect it to the network. I really would recommend you do plug this in. It's got Wi-Fi. I wouldn't use it because you do want this to have a reliable connection to the internet and also a reliable connection to all the other smart devices in your house, because this is going to sit at the heart of everything. So first things first, let's plug in the network, and we'll also plug in some power. So I've got the USB-C adapter here. So we'll plug this in here. So the light has come on the front there, and we're just going to leave that there for a minute to sort itself out. Once that's fully connected, it will announce itself essentially to your network as homeassistant.local, which means you can then open it up in a web browser by going to http://homeassistant.local:8123. That's the default address for this unit, and for most cases that'll be fine. In my case, I've got a couple of these running in my house and for this demo, so I won't be able to use that domain, but I can connect directly to its IP address. If you find on your network that it doesn't show up, you can just go into your router and find out what IP address has been allocated to it. If we try and go to it right now, I know what IP address it's going to get, so I'll just go to that and we'll just see what's going on. It's still not quite ready yet, so we'll come back to that in a second. So we're just waiting for that initial boot up to happen, because once that's finished, we're going to get a page that's telling us that Home Assistant is preparing, and then it'll do all its final setup and get itself online. That can take a little while to happen as well, so do be patient. If it doesn't appear straight away, just wait a little bit longer. Although it can be quite daunting. You've set this thing up, you think it's all going to work. It does usually work. I've never had it not work, so do trust the process and just be patient. Unlike I'm being right now. Come on! Connection refused.
Give me access. Give me access to my Home Assistant, please. I want to use it. There we go.
So there we go, it's preparing Home Assistant now. This can take up to 20 minutes, it's telling us. We will just sit here and wait. I won't make you sit here and watch it. So we'll just Right, it's finished installing now, so we can go ahead and create our first user account. Let's just do this here then. I'll type in my name and choose a password. I haven't entered it yet. So I'll do my password and press create account. The next step is to type in the name of your home. We'll just use home. We'll set our time zone, Europe/London, and the rest of that we'll just leave as that. We'll turn on all the analytics. That's quite useful for the developers to be able to see what's going on and gather information about the platform so they know what to work on. And then it's going to go and scan our network as it's done here, and it's found various devices on my network. We're not going to actually set up any of those immediately. I'm going to just go and skip past that for now, and this will take us to the dashboard. So this is the Home Assistant main dashboard. At the moment, this dashboard is being entirely managed by Home Assistant, which means it's just showing everything. Everything is going to get thrown onto that one page, which is fine for now, but we don't want that all the time. We're going to go and write some custom dashboards in a moment to try and improve these things. So I guess the first thing we want to do is bring in a device, something this can manage. So if we go to settings, and we go devices and services, we can see these ones here that have been discovered. So this has found things on my network right now. Specifically, there's 3 Philips Hues here, for example, because I've got 3 bridges. And then there's some other lights here, like an on-air light, which is just outside my room here. And then an Elgato on-air light. On-air light? Key light, sorry. So if you see the device you want, just click into there. I'll just go and add this. Let's add the on-air light quickly, submit. And we'll just add this one to show you how easy that is, especially with these ones that don't have a lot of authentication and are local. You just press a button. So we'll choose where that is, and we'll just choose that as in the living room. If we go to overview now, we've got that there, and we can turn that on and off. You can't see it, but it's happening. And that's just one of these. That's just a TP-Link plug. I do recommend these, actually. This is the TP-Link 115. You can turn this on and off then remotely, but also this one's got energy monitoring built in, which means you can see how much power it's currently using, and then also you can view the total consumption for the day or forever or whatever you want, which gives you an idea of how much energy your devices are using. So I think we need to add a few more devices, don't we? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and add a couple of devices. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch because it'll be rather dull, but I'll add, well, I suppose I can. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add one of these Hue bridges. I'm not sure which one it is, so I'm going to choose this one in the middle, and I'm going to press the button. I'll go down here and press the button on that bridge. So I've pressed the button on the bridge, and we'll just press submit here, and now it's added in my Hue, which has added a lot of extra devices to this install. So we'll just press finish here and go and have a look at the device list. Quite a lot of devices, because I've added the bridge for Hue, it's added all the sub-devices from that bridge as well. So every bulb, every switch, every motion sensor, they're all now in here. If we go back to that dashboard, as you can see, we've got quite a lot here. But we also have this here. So we've got gradient light strip, and that's now gone off. So we've got a couple of things we can play with. The lamp has now gone off as well. So we've got some things here we can play with, which is what we wanted. And I think we'll just add a couple more things while we're here. So let's go here. And what we'll do is we will add another integration. And I'm going to search for Shelly. Now, Shelly is a great little product. They're really cheap. They're tiny. I haven't got one to hand, but they're tiny little things. And you can just put them behind light switches or behind face plates in your house. And then you can use them to become smart relays, which can then work with this. You can turn things on and off. I've got one, for example, I've got one on our utility room fan, which means I can have that automatically come on when the humidity reaches a certain point or the tumble dryer comes on. So that's really handy. But they've also got this thing called Shelly EM. And I'm just going to add one of those. So I'm just going to add that. I'm just going to type in its IP address. And then we've got Energy Monitor A, finish. And I'm also, while I'm there, I'll just quickly add Energy Monitor B too while I'm here, which is on this IP. And these are now going to let us see how much power is currently being used. If we go over here, we can see under sensor on our dashboard, we've got cooker energy, grid, heat pump, and solar. So here we can see right now, if we look at solar power, we're currently generating 1 kilowatt of solar energy. And we're exporting 200 watts back to the grid. And we're going to use that in a minute onto the dashboards, but I just wanted to get that added in while I was here. I think the first thing we should have a quick look at, though, is how automations work and how we can make things like pressing buttons on this switch do something in our environment. So what we'll do is we'll go into settings and go to automations and scenes. And we haven't got any right now, which is fine. So we'll press create. And we'll start with an empty one, and we'll name it toggle light on switch press. So just give it a quick description of what it is. And every automation starts with a trigger. So and that's what's going to start it. It might be a time of day, it might be someone coming home, it might be a button being pressed, it could be lots of things. So we're going to go here and we're going to just choose this, this switch here, and we're going to say on the certain trigger, on the first button pressed initially. So when this button is first pressed, we want that to happen. We're not going to specify any additional conditions, and we're going to choose the desk lamp, and we're going to select toggle desk lamp, and we'll press save. That's straight in there, and as soon as I press this button now, this light has gone off, and if I press it again, the lights come back on again. So that was really easy, but that's nothing complicated. You could do that in the Hue app. Nothing is, gonna blow your mind there. But what if you wanted this button press to do something that wasn't Hue and you couldn't do it in the Hue app? You can now do that because this automation is just being triggered and it can do anything. It could send a message to your phone, it could open a garage door, it could the choices are endless, really. It could arm your system, it could enable certain modes, there are lots of options there. And that sort of gives you an idea of how the automation system works. You have triggers, you have conditions, and then you have actions. And you can do multiple actions per automation. So let's change this so it toggles both of those lights. So instead of just controlling one device, I'm going to delete that action from here, and I'm going to press add action, and I'm going to, this time, I'm going to use call service, and the service I'm going to use is called light.toggle, and what that allows us to do is just specify multiple lights that should be toggled. So we'll do desk lamp, and we'll add also gradient light strip, and we'll save. Now they're both currently on. If we press this button here, like this, both lights have gone off. If we do that again, both lights have come on. So that's brilliant. Pretty simple though. If you're doing stuff with lighting though, scenes are the thing to start with. So let's start by having a look at a scene. Let's go to the scene section, and it's imported all of the scenes here from my Philips Hue, because I've got some scenes set up in there because it's quite nice to design them in the Hue app itself. But let's create a new scene in here, and we're going to call this, we'll call this just demo scene. And what I want it to do is I just wanted to make these lights really bright. So let's go to here, and we're going to choose to have the desk lamp in this scene, and we're also going to add the gradient light strip into this scene. So let's click onto desk lamp, and we're going to say, right, we want brightness 100%, really bright, like that. And then on the gradient light strip, we want that to be really bright too, and we'll change the color of that to be a sort of orangey color like that, so we can really see it when it's active. So we'll save that scene now. So that's now got an encapsulated idea of that lighting design. And if you've got that in another room, you might have that on the ceiling lights on a certain brightness, a lamp on, or whatever it might be. And we've configured that all in Home Assistant now. So we could trigger that now. So let's say when on the second button, let's trigger that automation, that scene on this button rather quickly. So you enable demo scene on Hue button. So we'll do trigger again. We're going to select this switch, and we're going to go fourth button pressed initially this time, and then we're going to do activate scene, and then we'll choose demo scene. So we'll press save there now. And off it goes. It's now activated that scene. And if we want to press this now, it'll turn it off, and then we can toggle it back on again using the scene activator. Up next, I want to look at how we can make all of this work with our voice assistants in the house. So we can have those scenes activated by us asking something like Google or Alexa to do that. Now, to integrate with these in the most simple way possible, we need to use the Home Assistant Cloud service. Now, this is a service provided by a company called Nabu Casa, which are the people that sort of run the open source Home Assistant project. So everything you do when you buy this service is also going back to the same people that do that, and also supports the development of Home Assistant. So it's a good value for money, seeing as you haven't had to pay for Home Assistant other than the hardware. So you can go into settings and then choose Home Assistant Cloud, and then you can sign up for a free 1-month trial. You should do that. And then once you've got that trial set up, you'll be logged in. And once you're connected, you'll have a few options in here. One of them is remote control, text-to-speech, Alexa, and Google Assistant. We're going to look firstly at Google Assistant. And what I have right here is a Google Home Mini, which is just basically one of the things that works with Google. So I'm going to get this just plugged in quickly, get some power into this thing, make sure that's on, and we'll just wait for that to boot up, or we'll let that boot up while we talk about this. So the way it works is in both Alexa and Google, you can expose devices to those platforms. So you could expose a light, or you could expose a switch, or an automation, or a scene. And usually the default behavior in Home Assistant is to export everything. And you don't really want to do that, in my opinion. So if you go into here and you go to something like Manage Entities, you'll see 67 exposed entities. Now I always, hello Google. So if you turn all these off, then you're not going to be exporting too much. And that then allows you to individually choose which things you want to export. Now in our case here, I've exported a demo scene and the lamp. I'm also going to export that that demo night scene that we just created as well, so we can use that for showing how this works. So we just tick that and expose that entity. Once that's set up and that's all been synchronized over to Google, we need to actually get it onto here. Now, let's do that now. So to do that, we need to use the Google Home app. So get that installed if you haven't already. You probably have if you've got one of these. And we just go to the add button, and we do setup device, works with Google, and then we just need to search for Home Assistant Cloud on here. So we'll just do that, Home Assistant Cloud. And when that comes up, it'll ask us to log in. So it'll ask you for your username and password, and then you can press allow access. That'll then link that up between the two systems. If you wait a few seconds, the spinner will go away and we'll see what we've got. As you can see, we've now got our lamp showing up within Google's Home. So when we press it in here now on our phone, it's actually turning off our light. So we've got yet another interface. Hey Google, turn on the lamp. And the lamp's now come back on. So that just took 2 seconds really to set that up. Worth every penny for the cloud system. We can also use this to trigger our automation. So, hey Google, activate demo night scene.
Got it. Activating demo night scene.
So our scene's been activated. Hey Google, activate demo scene.
Okay. Activating demo scene.
So they've all been made available pretty much straight away. No problems with that. But what if we don't want to say activate and then the name of the scene? What if we want to just say something else? Well, with both Alexa and Google, you can configure custom routines within their apps. So if you just go to routines, and we'll press add, and then we'll choose add starter. So we're going to choose, when I say this, for example, when we say the building is on fire, I'm going to choose an action, and in this case I want to just trigger the demo night scene, and then I'm also going to just have it, oops, not do that, I want it to say something, so it's just going to say, oh, I'll call the fire brigade, get out the house. Okay, and we'll save that, and we'll press done, and we'll press save. And then we've got a custom routine. So when we say, hey Google, the building's on fire.
I'll call the fire brigade. Get out the house.
So that's another way you can set those custom names. You don't want to have to set your scenes up called your scenes as the names. And you don't want to say activate sometimes. And the same works for Alexa. You can use the Alexa app to create routines. It's a slightly different process, but it's all done within the app on your phone. So you can set all those up and those scenes can be exported. You can also use it to export scripts. We'll look at scripts in a moment, but scripts are basically just sets of those actions. So at the bottom of those automations you saw, we were just calling those actions, but you can just bolt those together into a script that just gets called whenever is necessary, either from another automation or when you press a button or whatever. So that's two of the things that you get from Home Assistant. The other thing you get is this thing called remote control, which we'll talk about quickly now before we look at the mobile applications. Now, remote control exposes your Home Assistant install in your house to the rest of the internet. Now, normally this is pretty much safe behind your home firewall, but that's not much good if you want to access your home from anywhere else. For example, if you happen to be out and about and you want to check in on your house and turn the light on or do something, you won't be able to do that. So you need to be able to access it from wherever you are. And Home Assistant Cloud provides this tunnel. So we're going to turn that on. And you'll see here we get given a URL. So it's a long random string .ui.nabu.casa. And once that's enabled and set up, when we access that URL, we can always use that wherever we are. Now, a couple of things. If you turn this on, you must make sure you've got a secure password for all the users on your system. Your Home Assistant install is available to everyone in the world. The long URL that is given there is a little bit deceiving in so much as it might make you think, oh, you'd need to be able to know that to find it, but that's not actually true. Most of those probably show up in certificate transparency logs and things like that. So it's important to remember your username and your password. It's also important that you update the software frequently. You don't want to leave your Home Assistant running really old versions of everything, so you should keep on top of that. It's really good though, the system will pop up with a notification to tell you the new versions and when they come out, so just make sure you apply those updates when they happen. So now we've got that enabled, we know that when we're out and about we'll be able to talk back to this. So let's have a look at the Home Assistant mobile app, shall we? And see what extra things we get by turning that on. So download that from the App Store or Play Store, depending on whether you're using iOS or Android. I've got an iPhone here, so we'll use that for this example. So when you press login, it'll scan for servers on your network, and then you can just log in using your username and password. And then once you've logged in, you'll have your dashboard just on the screen straight away. So here you can just see straight away we can use this to now control our lights as if we were using our computer. So that's one of the top 3 benefits really, is that you can do all of that from your hand and wherever you are. The second thing you can do once you've got the app installed is send notifications to your phone from automations or from the Home Assistant. So if you leave a door open and you're not at home, you can have that notification come straight through to your phone. And that's a really useful piece of the automation puzzle. So I'll just show you how to do that. If you go to Developer Tools and then choose Services, you should be able to find this option here. Now if you just search in this for Notify, and then it'll show up for send notification via mobile app, and then you can just press Call Service. And that will then send the notification to your phone. As you can see, it's shown up here, it says fancy title, Hello World. And you can do more advanced things as well. You can make that come through as a critical alert, which I'll show you how to set up in a second. So yeah, you've got the notifications, and they'll come through the same Apple or Google notification services you currently have. So you don't necessarily on those ones need to worry about the remote access component. So the third main benefit of having the phone is the ability to have Home Assistant know where your phone is. And that's really useful because then you can do things like when I'm at home or when I'm not at home and have those used in your automations. You can create zones to say a geographic area with a certain radius that means when you enter that zone or when you leave that zone with your phone, it can trigger things in there. They don't have to just be your house, you could have them at work, you could have them at the shops, you could have, I don't know, at the park, wherever it might be, so you can do certain things. So you could say, when I leave the park, I want X to happen at home. And you can do all that in here. So if you go to Settings, Areas and Zones, and then click on Zones, you can then configure as many zones as you want in here. You can just drag the zone wherever you want it and then choose a radius. Not too tricky. So that's zones. But the other information you're getting sent is a bunch of sensors information about your phone. If you go to Settings and you go to Devices and you look for a device called iPhone or the name of your phone, you'll see you're getting some data in here like your battery level, your location, all of those sort of things. They'll be showing up in here too, which is really handy. So you can see those things as well. So it just acts as another device within your smart home. If you've got others in the house, install the app on their phones or ask them to install it, because remember, this is going to track them, so it's important that they know that this is happening and you can see this and they understand how this home system works. So do make sure they know that. So let's do something just to bring some of that together. I think what we'll do is we'll create an automation that is triggered when the light comes on. Now this is a bit tenuous because it would be better to have like a door sense or something like that, but we'll use the light. So when the light comes on, I want it to send a notification to my phone to say X has happened, or this has happened, that's not good. So what we'll do, let's go to Settings, go to Automations, Create Automation, and we'll start a new one. So notify when light is switched on. And we'll say, so the trigger is going to be the device, and we're going to do desk lamp, and we're going to be when it's turned off. Sorry, no, it's not. It's going to be when it's turned on. And then we're going to set an action. And here we're going to use the call service action, and we're going to choose notify my iPhone, and we're going to say the door has been opened. And what we're going to do is also going to specify here, we're going to do push sound critical 1. And we'll set a title, security alert. This means, so I'm going to press this button here, which you can figure out we know turns off the light. So now when I turn that light back on, I'm expecting a notification to come through on my phone. So let's do that. There it is. The door has been opened and it's got this critical alert. So we're getting that push through over our focus and things like that on our phone. So that's quite useful as well, especially if you're doing those security type situations. So we've got all that working. So that's really handy. So that's about all we need to look at. There's a lot of other things in the app you could look at. So if you go into settings and then choose companion app, there's a few things in here you can look at. Like you can choose more settings on the location and how that works. You can also look at things like which actions are in here, and then you can expose some of those things within iOS itself. You've got sensors on here which you can then choose to turn on and off, which ones actually get pushed out, and how often you want them sent to Home Assistant, and as well as some integrations with Apple Watch and things like that. So yeah, that's the mobile app. It's worth having a good play around that. Like everything in here, just have a click around and see what you can find. So that's the mobile app. I think that's pretty nice. The next thing I think we could look at is probably just trying to tidy up this dashboard a little bit. This is a bit of a mess of data here, and I think we can probably do better than this. So let's go ahead now and show how this works. Let's start by pressing Edit Dashboard, and it says, first of all, do you want to take control of your dashboard? Yes, I do. Start with an empty dashboard, take control. And what we immediately get is this blank screen and an option that says Add Card. So let's go and add a card. When you click Add Card, you've got lots of little choices, and each of these represents one of those white boxes that you can see on the page. And we're going to start by keeping it really simple. We're just going to add an entity card. And this is one of the most basic types of things. And this just shows some information. So in this case, by default, it's just showing this on-air light. So we'll change this to desk lamp. And it just shows us the state of that desk. So I'm just going to save that and press done. There's our dashboard. It just says desk lamp on. Great. We click on that, and when we can adjust the settings on the screen. So that's one thing to do. If we go now and edit this again, let's have another look at other things we can do. So let's delete that card because that's a bit boring. So if we want to just do a list of entities, we've got the entities list card, and it's just showing, I'm just going to show this here right now. So this just shows us however many entities we want with appropriate actions next to them. So what would be useful for us while we're doing this, let's do the desk lamp and the gradient light strip and put them into a box. We give it a title called Study Lights, just like this, and then we'll save that onto the page. So now when we toggle that off, it'll just toggle off all the ones in that group, and then when we turn it back on again, they come back on again. Now I've just been told that a door has been opened because I set that up earlier. So I think what I'll just quickly do is turn that off. So we'll just disable for now, notify when light is switched on. We'll just toggle it off for now. So next I think we can add another piece of information to this, this puzzle, and what we could look at is seeing what we can do with some information that we're getting sent. So how much power that we're currently using, or let's do that. So let's add a card, and this time I'm going to scroll down to Gauge. Gauge is quite a nice card, and we'll take that and we'll see if we can find grid power. And this shows the amount of power. So we'll set the minimum is probably, or in this case, maybe minus 6,000, and the maximum is probably 12,000. And we're not going to divide severity. It doesn't seem to cope with negative numbers there, so we won't worry about that. But there's our grid power, and what that is showing is how much power we are currently using at home. But again, we're just building a long list, and this isn't particularly nice. So let's have a look at some of the components here we've got for making things look nice. Firstly, we've got these things down here. Now there's horizontal stack and vertical stack and grid. These are the three I want you to understand, because they make things so much easier when you're building it. Let me quickly show you a bit about mine. So this is my dashboard. This is my main screen when I first open my app. I have on one side, I've got a list of rooms, and on the other side, I've got some information about what's going on. So in this case, I've got all the rooms here, and then if I click into kitchen, I've got the lights in the kitchen, I've got the climate and the thermostat, and then I've got a bit of information over here about power being used in the kitchen. So I can see right now the cooker is on. So 3,674.2 watts. And we haven't used it much today. And then we can click back and then go into a different room like the study, and the same sort of thing applies there. And let's look at one of these pages. So let's take outside, for example, and what you can see here is we've got lots of these boxes, and these are all just cards that have been laid out by me. So let's go back to ours and let's have a look at grid, because grid is a good one. So we can choose on grid, and we're going to just put in some entities for this. We're just going to choose some entities. We're going to put in some entities that can show, not an entity list, we just want some entities. So we'll select entity, and we'll select entity again. We're just going to put 3 of them in, and we're going to go and choose the devices. So we're going to take in, we'll take in the temperature, which is coming off this motion sensor. We will have the state of our desk lamp, and we will also bring in the grid power. So there we go, we've got 3 boxes next to each other, but as you can see on the left hand side we've just got one big one. So using this grid means we can put stuff together to create one component. So you can choose turning off, rendering it as a square or not as well here. And if you add a 4th, or you change this to be 2 columns, you'll obviously influence how that looks. Something that the default dashboard in Home Assistant does, it's the thing called Masonry, and it will automatically move stuff around. So if you want consistency here, my general approach to this is to try and render only 2 cards on every page. So on every page I have 2 cards, which are usually vertical stacks. So you've got a vertical stack on the left and a vertical stack on the right. On a small screen, the right will go underneath the left, and then within that you've got as many extra cards as you want. So if you look back at mine, here I've got 2 columns, and they're both just laid out like that. And the same applies as you click through here. Everything is done like this for consistency, so we can make sure that things are, there's some consistency of where to expect something on the screen to be, regardless of the size of the screen. So let's go ahead now and delete these cards, and delete this here, and delete this here, and create that style. So we're going to build in a vertical stack, and this is just cards that go on top of each other. And the first thing we're going to do is just quickly recreate that entity list for our 2 lights. So we've got desk lamp, and we've got gradient light strip, and we're going to just call this one lighting, and we're going to save that, and then we can see that here. You can go into these now as well if you want. So if you don't want to call it the full name, you could just call it desk lamp, and then you could give it a an appropriate icon, and then you can also customize other things on here as well. Like if you want to show some additional information, like when it was last updated, you could do that too. So we'll just do this LED strip, and then we've got our little icons showing up there. These use the material design icons, so if you want to go and look through all of that, you can find that. Just Google it. There's a good site that gives you browse that. So let's put in another vertical stack at the root of our page, and in this one we're going to start by just we're going to add in another entities thing, and this time we're just going to show off the temperature, and we'll show off whether there's any the light level in the room too. Now these are going next to each other at the moment because there's just not enough data to worry about showing them next to each other at the moment. But if we add some more, let's go into this top one, and we'll edit that, and we'll add a new card. And in this one, I'm just going to add a simple gauge here that shows grid power, and we'll save that. And then we've got our 2 columns. You can also put grids within vertical stacks and vertical stacks within grids, and whatever you want, however nested you want, you can go and do that. So there's loads of things you can play with here, and if you need to, if you go into Raw Configuration Editor, you'll find all of this configuration is available in a YAML file. So if you want to change things, move things around, you can do it from there as well, and that can be a bit quicker if you've got certain things you want to do. But using the visual editor is quite a good way to start, and you'll find there's loads of different things and cards on here. You've got buttons, button cards here. You can insert statistics and maps, so you can bring in different things like that, which would be useful. If you've got things like heating controls in your house, you could then use the climate or the thermostat element to bring that in. There are also graphs and things like that as well that you can use. So the options are basically limitless. Well, no, they're not quite limitless with this, because there's a fair amount of constraint imposed by the dashboard system because of just what it is. But there are also some third-party things that you can use to bring in with this as well if you want to. But you don't have to. You can do a lot with this. If you want to style it differently, there are themes that you can both import, but you can also write your own. I'm not going to go into the full details on theming right now in this video, but you can just do themes. Like if you look at mine here, I've created this theme basically myself. So there's just some YAML files which have a bunch of hex codes in and spacing, things like that, spacing details. So it's pretty good. The other thing that would be worth showing you about the dashboard system is the energy dashboard. So if you go to, I'll show you on mine because it's all set up. If you go under energy, you can get this view here, and this view shows you the current or more the historical for the day consumption within your house. So you can see how much power you might have generated from your solar panels, how much you brought in from the grid, how much you've sent back out again, and so on. So here we can see the yellow bars on this graph are how much solar we've consumed, the purple bars are how much we've sent back to the grid, and the blue bars are how much we've consumed from the grid. So you can add individual devices. If you've got a bunch of these, for example, around your house, like energy monitoring plugs, you can then bring that into the energy dashboard as well. I think that's basically covered the core concepts of Home Assistant. So we've looked at adding devices. Now, the devices you have in your house will vary hugely, and what devices are actually supported by Home Assistant is growing by the day and by every new release. If you find there's not a device that is supported, you might be able to use a custom component through hacks. If you just Google hacks, you'll be able to find out how to add that. There are other tools and add-ons as well that you can add, but we'll talk about those, I think, in another video. So when we did some automations, we showed how to set those up. We did some scenes, we set it up with Google, and we've also looked at the app and the remote access side of things. So if that has been helpful, please like and subscribe to this video. I want to do more videos like this about Home Assistant. I'm going to do a few more advanced things as well. I've got a fair number of fairly complicated automations on my own side of things, which I'd love to try and show you and go through, and some of the other smart things that I've got going on here. So I'm going to make some videos on those things. I've got a bunch of smart technology that I've been sort of building up around the place here that I want to do some videos on as well. So there's some of that I hope coming up soon as well. So yeah, please like and subscribe. I will hopefully see you on the next video. In the meantime, stay safe, happy Home Assistant-ing, and if you've got any questions, pop a question in the comment below. I'll be happy to try and help with anything you might have. I've put some links in the description below for things like how to get hold of the Raspberry Pis, or where you might be able to find those, as well as things like the Raspberry Pi Imager that we looked at quite a long time ago now at the beginning of this video. So yeah, good luck everyone. I have a good exploration with the platform, and I hope to see you soon. I didn't record my screen. You know what? This is doomed. I bet I didn't even press record on the camera. I bet the battery and the microphone's run out. I bet something's gone wrong. Right then, here we are. No, not right then, I don't like that. Home Assistant. Do you know what that is? I do, and I'm going to tell you a bit about it.